Today's question: how can or when can we use research in the inquiry process?
Hello, I'm Aliya Caldwell from ETHOS Innovation Center, and I'm one of the STEM educators here.
This is John Taylor, Senior Director of STEM Education here at Ethos also. Great to be with everybody today. We had a question come from a teacher, which is an interesting question. I think you can interpret a lot of different ways. And the question was, how can or when can we use research in the inquiry process?
Great question.
Yeah.
And John,
go ahead.
We kind of talked about how this is a two-part question, two
Yes.
different ways you can approach this.
Yes, because I think a lot of us, when I think of research, I think back to high school and doing research papers, and then in college doing research papers. And so you're always looking at other people's materials, and then you're supposed to put that together and arrive at some kind of conclusion. So that would be kind of like using materials to do inquiry or do research. But then if you look it up, I mean, a structured or strategic investigation, that's what research is actually also. And oddly, that's the same definition as inquiry has, but it's really about doing it. So actually doing the investigation, the whole process of going through. So I think we can take on both of these. I think we're up for it.
Oh, yes, always. So let's start with the first part, research in the traditional way.
Okay.
As an elementary teacher, a second grade teacher, my kids didn't write research papers, but we often, I know, big surprise, but we did research by reading books on the topic we are studying. So my students might have read a book like this when we're talking about animals, and we wouldn't have called it research, but we would have written a report, which at the elementary level, I think is the same as research at the high school level. I would have guided them through this process, but they would have been reading it. So if we're studying animals, we might have a book like this, or if we're doing our weather science kit, I might have a book like this. It says, next time you see a cloud.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, because we get into it, even like text annotation. When you're doing this at the elementary level, any level where you're taking the kids through a text and they're underlining the key ideas, going through that is research. That is our research component. And that's one thing we've kind of shared out. We talk about our steps of inquiry that we like to use. We start with observation and getting the questioning and the prediction. But when students are reading through text and annotating, they're observing. And then as they start thinking about that and they start wondering what's happening here, and they start to question the material, again, that's the next step in doing research. That's what we want to do. So in a way, it's kind of like whenever we do cross-curricular in training, which we do a lot, at each of the steps, we talk about how we do it in language arts and mathematics, but especially in language arts, when those two carry over, that's that research component.
Yep. And I think research can also be extending it. Those what now, those further wonderings, I think that's a piece of research as well, because we're taking it to that next level and our learners are taking control and they're taking ownership of that question or that inquiry or that process that they want to follow. As a lower elementary teacher, we taught a lot of just how to write. As an elementary teacher, we didn't write big, long research projects, but we would write short little sentences or groups of sentences. I wouldn't even call them paragraphs, about a topic. And for me, that was research for my students. It was heavily guided by me, but they were taking ownership in the way that they wrote it, in the details that they included, and how they saw this information fitting together. And we would turn it into a book often. So our research might be like habitats, and they'd have a section on habitats, and then maybe what the animal eats, prey and predator type of information. So to me, at the elementary level, that is research because they're providing that background knowledge and they're learning stuff that they didn't know before.
And they're pulling from maybe hard copy or online sources to do this. I love the idea that it's age appropriate, that, we want kids to be doing, in a sense, research, kindergarten all the way up, but it's going to look differently. So if I think about it that way, then I'm thinking if I'm a kindergarten teacher and my kids are looking at something, we've had a discussion, and they're drawing pictures as they go through. Those picture annotations are trying to capture what they have experienced. That's part of their research experience. They're pulling stuff that would later on be data. And I think people think pictures aren't data. Pictures
Oh,
are
yes,
data.
they are.
Some of the
Yes, they
best
are.
data,
That's
definitely.
right. And I think just getting in that mindset of thinking like a scientist is huge for our lower elementary students. And it's one thing I've been stressing to students I'm working with, that we think like a scientist all day long. And so using our textbook or an online article or a picture book, a read aloud of some sort, I think is providing research and knowledge. They might not be able to pick up this book and read it by themselves, but perhaps if I'm reading aloud, they're gathering information auditorily, which is
Very
another way.
good. Very good. You think about the different learning styles and how can we engage each of those. Now that's really good. And this is when we think about as elementary teachers doing the language arts components you have to do. I think an aha moment for me was that language arts skills, those ones you're developing with your students, will make them better scientists. Because each of those, whether it's compare contrast, I mean, each of you doing Venn diagramming, whatever you're doing, those skills are helping them inquire better or research better. And so now in an investigation, that becomes very fun because you give them ammunition to really get in there and have fun with whatever they're doing. It gets so cross-curricular. It gets into, social studies. I love not calling it social studies, but social science. I like that.
Oh, that's a good one.
We go, science is everywhere, right?
That's right.
We want the kids to have inquiring minds. We get those higher level thoughts in Bloom's taxonomy. So as we're working on those higher level skills, as you're meeting with your language arts, professional development, those opportunities, it's creating opportunities for your kids to be better scientists. If you take advantage of it, right? If you
That's right.
realize that, it's very cool.
And it's really fun, especially as a lower elementary teacher, if you get dramatic with it. I've been working with some second graders, and when we talk about thinking like a scientist, we go, I thought like a scientist today. And then they get all excited about practicing these skills in math or practicing in language arts or writing time. And it really makes that connection for them that I am a scientist, not just during my science time, but all day long.
I love that term, student scientist,
Mhm.
give them that label. They're glad to have it and they have a lot more fun. Like, ooh, I'm cool. I'm a
They
student
feel all
scientist.
special.
Yeah, they're contributing.
That's
That's
right.
awesome. So if we think about the other side of this question about if you think of research as the activity of doing the science, and I can see this because when we do our training, we talk about spending time on observations and questioning, and then taking. So good question today and great discussions go through this. Hope this was helpful. Remember, if you have questions at the bottom, look at the email link, hit that, send us some more questions for us to talk about as we do the inquiry zone. And thanks very much for being with us today.
See you next time. We're excited to work with our amazing partners at Mary Daly Elementary School. Your student dedication is awesome. And thank you to the dedicated and outstanding teachers at Mary Feaser Elementary School for their work in the inquiry zone to better serve their students. Thank you.
ETHOS offers the inquiry zone professional development to schools. Helping to ensure a robust, fun, and cross-curricular approach to science is supported in all grades. Please contact us at contact@ethosinc.org.